Before Britain ever cast its shadow over the Niger, this land was alive. It was ancient, organized, and rich in ways that went far beyond gold or oil. This wasn't an empty wilderness waiting to be discovered. This was a land of powerful kingdoms and thriving communities, each with its own government, its own faith, and its own destiny. Imagine a vast network of civilizations. To the west, the mighty Oyo Empire, whose cavalry thundered across the savannas, a force to be reckoned with. To the south, the Kingdom of Benin, world-renowned for its breathtaking bronze artistry and its massive walls, which were said to stretch even farther than the Great Wall of China. To the east, the Igbo communities, built not on kings, but on kinship and democracy. Their society woven together by vibrant market exchanges. And in the north, the great Hausa city-states and Fulani emirates, shining beacons of Islamic scholarship, magnificent architecture and sprawling trade, connected by ancient caravan routes to North Africa and the Middle East. This was a world in motion, and at its heart was a bustling port city known as Echo, which we now call Lagos. Its docks were a whirlwind of activity. Ivory, pepper, palm oil, and intricate textiles were constantly moving in and out, linking the city to the powerful empires of Benin and Oyo, and even to faraway ports across the Atlantic. European traders would come and go, but make no mistake, they did not rule here. The people of Lagos, of Benin, and of the Niger Delta were the masters of their own fate. For centuries, trade had been the lifeblood of this region. It had a dark side, of course, the transatlantic slave trade, a brutal and horrifying commerce in human lives. It was a deadly economy where African middlemen and European merchants negotiated, fought, and profited from a system that drained millions of people from the continent. But by the early 1800s, the tides began to turn. Britain, having abolished the slave trade in its own empire, turned its focus to what it called legitimate commerce. They wanted palm oil to lubricate the machines of their industrial revolution. They wanted cotton, cocoa, and other resources to feed their booming factories. The Niger River, that great artery flowing through West Africa, became the new gold mine, a direct route into the heart of the continent's immense riches. But behind the polite language of trade and civilization lay a much deeper, more aggressive ambition. Britain was no longer content to simply buy African goods. It wanted to own the land itself. It wanted to control the rivers, command the people, and dictate the terms of existence. The stage was being set for a monumental clash. The kings and merchants of West Africa, masters of their domains for generations, did not yet see the storm gathering on the horizon. But the empire was coming, and it wouldn't arrive with merchants bearing gifts, but with guns, gunboats, and an unshakable will to conquer. The year is 1851. Lagos, a prosperous and independent Yoruba kingdom, stands as a vibrant hub of West African trade. Its markets are overflowing with palm oil, ivory, and spices. Its harbor is a bustling mosaic of canoes and sailing ships from every coast. It is a city of wealth and power. But beneath this calm, prosperous surface, a storm is gathering. On the throne of Lagos sits Oba Kosoko, a strong-willed and fiercely independent king. He sees the growing influence of the British for what it is, a threat to his city's sovereignty, and he resists their demands at every turn. To the British Empire in London, Kosoko is not just a king, he is an obstacle to their imperial expansion, an obstacle to their control of the palm oil trade, and a man who, in their eyes, must be removed. So they manufactured a noble excuse, ending the slave trade. But this was a pretext, a convenient justification to mask their true motive: control. Complete and total control of Lagos, its strategic port, and all the lucrative trade routes that led deep into the African interior. In December of 1851, the empire's answer arrived. 4 British warships, HMS Bloodhound, HMS Teaser, HMS Waterwitch, and HMS Scout, anchored just off the coast of Lagos. Their cannons were loaded. Their mission was clear: to break the city's resistance by force. For 2 days, the sky over Lagos was filled with fire, smoke, and the thunder of cannon fire. The British bombardment rained relentless destruction upon the city. Homes were set ablaze, markets fell silent, and the once thriving harbor turned red with flame and floating debris. Obakosoko's warriors fought with incredible bravery, defending their home with everything they had. But their muskets were no match for the overwhelming power of British naval artillery. By the end of the second day, Lagos was in ruins. Obakosoko was forced to flee into exile. In his place, the British installed his rival, Oba Akitoye, a puppet king who would be far more compliant with their interests. For 10 years, the illusion of an independent Lagos was maintained. But in 1861, the mask finally came off. Britain demanded total, unconditional control. They presented Akitoye's successor with a chilling ultimatum: sign the Treaty of Cession, or face the complete annihilation of your city. The treaty was signed. With a single stroke of a pen, the centuries-old kingdom of Lagos ceased to exist. It became a British colony. This was the first permanent foothold of the British Empire on Nigerian soil. It was the beachhead, the gateway through which colonialism would pour, spreading across the land like a flood. From that moment on, Lagos was no longer just a city. It became the empire's key, unlocking the vast riches of the Niger for British businessmen, soldiers, and missionaries. And right behind the soldiers came the traders, men who would soon build a company so powerful it would rule over more land and people than any African king had ever dreamed of. That company was the Royal Niger Company. The conquest had only just begun. After the cannons fell silent in Lagos, Britain realized there was a smarter way to build an empire. Why fight for land when a company can conquer it for you? Enter Sir George Taubman Goldie, a man who saw the Niger River not just as a waterway, but as the highway to a corporate empire. In the 1880s, British traders were scattered along the river, fighting each other for palm oil and ivory. It was chaos. Goldie's genius was to unite them. In 1886, he merged over 30 companies into one powerhouse, the Royal Niger Company, chartered by Queen Victoria herself. This charter wasn't just for trade. It gave the company the right to have its own army, sign treaties, and even wage war. This was corporate colonization, a company with the power of a government, operating deep inside Africa for one thing: profit. From their headquarters in Lokoja, the company's agents fanned out across the Niger. They signed hundreds of treaties with local chiefs, many of whom couldn't read the English they were written in. A thumbprint on paper, a handshake, and gifts of gin or muskets were all it took for entire communities to unknowingly sign away their sovereignty. Soon, the company's red flag, with its motto, trade, travel, and treaties, flew over vast territories. The company wasn't just trading anymore. It was ruling. It imposed taxes and tariffs and used its private army to crush anyone who resisted. Villages that refused to trade on its terms were blockaded or burned. The palm oil that once enriched African merchants now fueled the factories of industrial Europe. Meanwhile, in Europe, the scramble for Africa was on. At the Berlin Conference, European leaders sat around a map, carving up a continent they barely knew. When it came to the Niger Basin, Britain presented its claim. The proof? Not government presence, but the Royal Niger Company's treaties and trading posts. The other powers agreed. With the stroke of a pen, a huge part of modern-day Nigeria was handed over to a corporation. But this diplomatic victory was built on suffering. The company's rule was ruthless. African merchants who resisted its monopoly were ruined. Chiefs who challenged its authority were deposed. Those who fought back were branded rebels and faced British gunboats. But the spirit of resistance was not broken. Across the Niger, leaders rose up to defy this invisible empire of commerce. One of the first was King Jaja of Opobo. Born into servitude, Jaja's brilliance and ambition made him one of the most powerful merchants in the Niger Delta. He built Opobo into a thriving city and insisted on trading with the British on his own terms. To the company, he was a major obstacle. To his people, he was a hero of independence. When the Royal Niger Company demanded all trade go through them, Jaja refused. He believed Africans had the right to trade freely. In 1887, the company lured him onto a British warship, promising peaceful talks. It was a trap. He was arrested for obstructing commerce and exiled to the Caribbean. With its leader gone, Opobo fell, its trade and freedom seized by the company. But the fire of resistance spread. In the Itsekiri kingdom, Chief Nana Olomu of Ebrohimi rose to prominence. Like Jaja, he was a powerful trader who dealt with the British as an equal. When the company tried to impose taxes and undermine him, Nana fought back. In 1894, the company accused him of rebellion. They sent gunboats to his city, Ebrohimi. The bombardment was swift and brutal. Homes burned, hundreds died. Nana was captured and exiled. The message was chillingly clear: defiance would not be tolerated. Still, resistance continued. The Brassmen, a group of Jaja traders, had been trading palm oil with the British for generations. Now, the Royal Niger Company was strangling their livelihood. In 1895, they took matters into their own hands. Hundreds of warriors launched a daring raid on the company's headquarters at Akassa, hoping to reclaim their freedom. The British response was devastating. Gunboats descended on Brass, setting the city ablaze. It was a massacre. The British called it a punitive expedition. History remembers it as the Brass Rebellion, one of the last major acts of defiance against corporate rule. By the end of the 1890s, the Royal Niger Company's power was huge, but so was the cost of maintaining it. The constant uprisings and the need for soldiers were straining its finances. Back in London, people started questioning whether a private company should be ruling millions of Africans. The British government knew it was time to step in. A deal was struck that would end corporate rule but cement colonial control. In 1899, the British government made the Royal Niger Company an offer. On January 1, 1900, Britain formally took control. The Union Jack flew over 3 new territories: the colony of Lagos, the Protectorate of Southern Nigeria, and the Protectorate of Northern Nigeria. The Royal Niger Company's job was done, but its story didn't end there. It evolved into the United Africa Company, which later became a part of Unilever, one of the world's largest corporations, a direct line from colonial conquest to modern global business. For the people of the Niger, this was the beginning of a new chapter of subjugation. Traditional rulers became local administrators for the British. Taxes were imposed on land that had always been their own. The exploitation continued, just under a different flag. Then, in 1914, a man named Lord Frederick Lugard decided to make things more efficient. To cut costs, he merged the northern and southern protectorates with the colony of Lagos. A new entity was born, given a name derived from the river that started it all. He called it Nigeria. The name itself wasn't even African. It was coined by Flora Shaw, a British journalist who later married Lugard. She thought it would be a convenient label for administration. And just like that, a nation was created on paper. Not by consent, culture, or unity, but by commerce and conquest. The Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Jaja, and hundreds of other groups within its borders never agreed to become one. They were now part of a single colonial state, serving foreign interests. For Britain, the acquisition was complete. For Nigeria, the struggle was just beginning. A struggle to reclaim a stolen destiny and define what it means to be a nation beyond the shadow of an empire. A struggle to remember that the land sold for £865,000 was never truly for sale. The signatures on those treaties have faded, but their consequences are still with us today. So, was Nigeria created or was it bought? The truth is, Nigeria was sold before it was ever born. Thank you so much for watching. This is a story that needs to be told. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into history. See you in the next one.